Okay.
Okay, you're going.
Youth Night INGs. This is brainstorming, planning, and executing. Oh, there we go. Youth Night INGs.
Executing.
Youth Night INGs. Youth Night INGs.
Executing.
Brainstorming, executing, planning.
I just got that on tape.
Okay.
What you just said.
Here are some steps that make brainstorming effective. The Youth Night outline will be given to everyone in advance so that they are able to read the outline, come to the meeting prepared. It's really important that if you're given the outline in advance, you do read it and you do come prepared and you do have ideas already going, because if not, everyone's going to be sitting there reading it for the first time and it's going to take up the first 20 minutes of a planning meeting and everyone's going to be there much longer than they want to be. So, don't do that. One person will act as a facilitator to organize and control the session. That's usually going to be an adult core. Storming, back again. There's one person who's going to act as the facilitator, and that's going to be usually a core team member, and then another person who's going to act as the secretary, who can have a flip chart or newsprint or a laptop, whatever's going to work best for your group. You can have the newsprint out there, and someone can just jotting down all the ideas, and that works just fine. There's 6 rules. All right. These 6 rules will keep the ideas flowing in your brainstorming session. You want to set a brainstorming time limit. Give the group 5 to 10 minutes to brainstorm. This will keep the core focused and on task. You want quantity versus quality. You don't hear that often. It's like, oh, quality versus quantity. No, no. Here we want quantity versus quality because we want people to spit out ideas as much as possible, even if they're ridiculous. We want to hear them because they can be tailored, right? Everybody's going to have different ideas. And so if you just keep spitting out even what you think might be silly, someone else might be able to adapt it to something that's going to be useful for the group. So quantity versus quality. We want to encourage active listening. Oftentimes brainstorming sessions can prompt side conversations. By encouraging active listening, you can keep the one conversation that will build off one another. And defer judgment, because if you guys are all bringing ideas to the table and you're spitting out the most ridiculous ideas, don't have other people judge it, because then you're not going to want to bring out ideas, and so therefore don't judge other people's silly ideas, because then they're not going to want to talk and they're not going to want to bring up these ideas either. So defer judgment. You guys can talk about the ideas later. You're like, well, this is a good idea, but I think we could maybe incorporate it in this way. Do it nicely, you know. Don't say, well, that's just, you know, ridiculous. I was going to say another word. Go for speed. What's that? Go for speed. The faster the group generates ideas, the less likely they will squelch an idea or be judgmental. So there's no time to be like, oh, that's silly. You know, just keep talking and keep going. And then summarize. At the end of the brainstorming session, close with a summary of the ideas. The core is probably going to have a consensus of what ideas you're going to maybe move forward with. So that's going to be all in the summary of the brainstorming session. And this is all fairly natural, I would hope. This isn't anything that you might need to, follow with the, check mark, okay, we've done step 1, check 2, okay, we've done step 2. This is something that is going to flow naturally when you guys are brainstorming, I'm assuming. Planning. When you're planning your night, you'll need to assign team members to do the following tasks. You want someone in charge of the environment, someone in charge of the teachings, the break in the small groups, see how you're going to do it that way, and also with the send. So it's not going to be that one person, though, who's in charge of doing the whole environment, the whole setup. That's going to be one person who's going to be in charge of facilitating that whole setup, or facilitating the teaching, or facilitating the send, or that. So you can still call on each other for help for different things. It's not a matter of, okay, well, that's your job, okay, that's your job, and that's your job, and then everyone goes their separate ways. That's not how it's going to work. Everyone's working together, but you can have people in charge of maybe taking charge of it. So for the teachings, you guys don't need to worry about that, because that's going to be, unless of course you guys want to be part of it and you want to do some kind of witness talk or you want to say something. For the most part, I'm sure that might not be the case, and that's fine. The adults are going to have to turn in what they're going to say to Josh, and same thing, if you guys want to say something and be a part of it, you need to turn in what you want to say to Josh as well, so he can go through and, like I said earlier, just make sure everything's on par with what we want to teach. Skits. Is there a skit? Rehearse it in advance. Oh man, there's nothing worse than coming and doing a skit and not having any kind of rehearsal and being just a complete disaster in front of everybody.
Confirmation.
Just like at the confirmation retreat, I mean, that thing that, that dance that they had done was really good, but they spent a lot of time rehearsing it. You don't want to go up there and it was really good. You don't want to go up there without having any rehearsal, and it would have been it wouldn't have had the same effect. I'm sure you all could agree that that would not have had the same effect if there was only 5 minutes of rehearsal time in there and people were blubbering around what they needed to do and it didn't go with the song. Also, a prayer leader. Who's going to be the one to lead prayer time? This might be something that's really good for you guys to do, to lead the prayer at the end of the sermon, because I personally think that hearing a prayer, especially something that's really heartfelt from a peer, is really effective. So I'm sure that, other teens are going to think that as well. So this could be something that you guys are in charge of. And it's a really wonderful task. So pray about who you want to be in charge of that. Planning, audio, visual. Make sure everything's set up beforehand. You don't want to spend the first, especially if you're limited to only an hour, you don't want to spend the first 15 minutes that the teens are there setting stuff up. So I know we had a lot of help from John for confirmation, and he came in and did everything beforehand, so most things were set up, nice, and everything went very smoothly for confirmation because we did have that helper. So if you are kind of that techie type of person and you want to be the person to set everything up, make sure it's working, make sure it's running beforehand, because that's something that I know the adults really appreciate when teens take over the techie stuff. But if that's not your sole calling, I'm sure you guys have more things to be able to contribute. Promotion, like we talked about before. Talk about how you're going to promote the Life Night. Who's going to be in charge of, contacting these people? Who's going to be in charge of, sending out a Facebook notice? Who's going to be in charge of sending out a text? Who's going to be in charge of going and talking to the parents of the teens and making sure that they know that there's a Life Night coming up, or Youth Night, I'm sorry. I'm used to saying Life Night. Food. Who's going to be the food volunteer? Who's going to provide snacks or whatever? That's important, right? Teens want food. I want food. We all like food. Executing. The following are the details that need to happen to make the youth night actually happen. Set up your environment. Make sure the room is ready. Like I said, you don't want to spend the first 15 minutes just doing setup. It's not going to be effective. If there is something that you really want to do. I know in the past we did this catacombs talk, and it was really, really neat, but it took a lot of setup because we had black tarps, and the teens walked in and it was like a cave. They felt like they were in a cave, in these catacombs, and everything was lit by candlelight. That took up a lot of time beforehand, a lot of preparation to do, but it was really effective, and it was a really great night that I know a lot of the teens still remember to this day. So make sure that that's all set up beforehand. Set up any audio visual, test equipment, test the video clips, make sure everything's working, make sure they're not going to go out on you in the middle of giving a talk, like this projector. Walk your team through the night. This is not something that you guys are probably going to be in charge of. It's going to be more the core is going to be helping walk you guys through the night, give everybody an outline, because pointing to this, there's nothing there. The youth night guide that everyone gets with the suggestions, that might have changed quite a bit. I mean, that was a starting point, but that might have changed in that 2-3 weeks that you guys have been planning a lot. So make sure that there's another guide, another outline that everyone has a copy of, so everyone knows what's going to be happening at what time, and not the other teens. You want the leaders to know that. You don't need to give that to the teens. Dress rehearsal. If there's a skit, dress rehearsal. Another thing to know that's a possibility, you can do a skit on video and then show it later. So you don't have to do a live skit. You can do things. That's another way. It's an effective thing that you can do. You can get together with the whole team and do a skit, maybe a couple nights beforehand, so you have enough time to, format it however you need to do it. And so that's another option when you are doing skits, especially if there's a lot of words to the skits, so you can cut, memorize the next line. All right, go on again, so you don't have to be trying to do it all live. Pray. Pray for the teens attending the night. Pray for God's will to be done throughout the night, and pray over those involved in the night. Just like Josh said at the beginning, being involved in any type of in any type of ministry, in any type of service, really involves a commitment to prayer, because you need to be praying for those you're serving, you need to be praying for yourself, because we don't work on our own will, we work on God's will. You know, we don't have the power to do anything by ourselves. It's the Holy Spirit that we have the power through. So trying to do anything on our own is gonna, be useless. We have to make sure that we're like, all right, God, lead us how you want it to go today, We want to be prepared, but we want to make sure that we're really doing God's will and not our own will. So pray, very important. Cleanup and evaluation. All right, this is very true. The next thing, it says cleanup. The fastest way to be a divided team is having 1 or 2 members who don't pull their weight and leave during the cleanup process. So if you're involved in a team and you decide like, oh man, I really gotta go, I don't have time to stick around and clean up, man, you're gonna make the rest of the team resent you. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Everybody stay. Make sure you have allotted time. If the youth night ends at I don't know, let's say noon, make sure that you have allotted time till 12:30. Like today I told my husband, he's like, what time are you coming back? I'm like, well, it's supposed to end at 2. I'm gonna stay around for half an hour to clean up if needed. So expect me home at 3. So just make sure you've allotted that time. Like don't say, oh yeah, it ends at 2, Mom, I'll be home at 2:05. Make sure you've planned cleaning up into the whole process. It's just better for everybody. And then you're not disappointed when you're like, oh man, I had to stay a half hour later to clean up. Just expect that you're gonna clean. We're all gonna be cleaning. It's not just, trust me, like peer leaders are not like just in charge of cleanup either. You guys are gonna be part of so much more. But it's just a good way to pull your weight on any team that you're involved in. Evaluate. After the teams have left, maybe take a couple minutes and say, okay, what went wrong? What did we not like? What did they not pay attention to, or what went really right? Like, wow, that was like the best part. I think this was more effective, and we should maybe try and incorporate this into more of our nights. Or maybe we should even take this to, a retreat setting or something. So just take that time to evaluate. Evaluate maybe who was really on board, who was maybe lacking. This is also a good time to notice trends in your peers. To be like, well, I don't know, Susie, I don't know if there's a Susie. Susie is normally really involved, and today she was kind of off, and I don't know what that has to do with it. Maybe it's time to, maybe if we notice a trend, that makes us more aware of the teens that might be going through something at home that we just don't know about. Maybe that's when we can try and be a little more aware of what's happening with people and offer them more support if needed. Or it's also a nice time to realize like positive trends, like, oh man, yeah, this person started, Johnny started coming and he was not interested, and by the end of the year, man, he's totally on board and I can really see a change in him. Like, it's a really good time to, if we're available to be at all of the youth nights or soul Javas, it's a really good time to notice those trends and to talk about them and be really pumped up about stuff like that, because that's when you see like the Holy Spirit working on other people. It's exciting. And we're done. That's it.